Another week and another Tides of War assignment for all of us to work towards. This time our goal is the Selbstlader 1906, and this is different from the two Christmas weapons that we've just received as a gift in the form of the Ribeirol and the M1897 shotgun. This one is part of the Tides of War weekly assignment, and as such there is a big assignment that you need to complete if you want to unlock it. And I'd say that so far this is the hardest assignment that we've been dealt. Not really in difficulty, but it's a bit more time consuming to get it all finished. Not to mention that there seems to be some bugs right now with the assignment tracking, which can lead to a bit of frustration. If you find that the assignment isn't tracking on a server, you can press escape and look in the top right. If it's there, then it's working. If it isn't, then try another server. I hope that DICE can fix this as soon as possible. And as a quick tip, I'd recommend trying to do some of the vehicle damage parts with friends, because it's really useful to have a squad mate calling out enemy vehicle positions, and it doesn't hurt that you have multiple players trying to take down vehicles either. So what do you need to get to unlock this awesome weapon? It's pretty good. Well, first off, you need to deal 200 damage to vehicles. This is pretty self-explanatory really. Either use assault and do damage to transport vehicles, tanks, and if you can, planes. And no, empty vehicles don't count. Or you can play as support and use the grenade pistol, or even get yourself on an anti-air and just do damage to planes that way. That counts too. After that, you've got three options to proceed. Your bottom option, and in my opinion the easiest route, is to deal 100 damage to planes. So get yourself on a well placed anti-air and you can get that in no time at all. Or if you're a pilot, then you're going to be able to get that quite easily by doing damage to other planes in the sky. Fiel is a very good map for that, where planes spawn regularly. One thing I will say though is that on one particular server, getting on the anti-air was a bit of a challenge, as not only were they all full, but they also seemed to be stopping enemy players from jumping in planes. I guess because there was no safe place for them to fly when anti-air actually works. I think pilots might have a bit of a hard time this week while players are trying to do this assignment. So the middle option wants you to instead do 500 damage while in planes. Again, this is pretty easy if you're a good pilot, but perhaps it's going to take you a while if you're not so handy in the planes. These two paths then want you to capture an objective in a vehicle and then kill someone from 50 meters away in a vehicle. Personally, I did the vehicle capture early on in game because it's just way easier that way. If you're in a tank or transport vehicle with a weapon, you can capture the first few points without worrying about being killed. And then if you're lucky and it tracks you, you can do the next one straight away by getting a kill. Now if you don't choose to go down the plane damage route, you've got another choice. The top path instead offers you the option of dealing 200 damage with assault equipment. Now you may think that's very similar, if not the same, to the very first part of the assignment, and it is, but the first stage did not specify assault equipment, whereas this one does. Even still, with some Panzerfaust, dynamite and AT grenades, this one is not very difficult. It just takes you a while because although tanks are everywhere in BF5, apparently when you need to find one, they're nowhere to be seen. I'm sure if you jump onto Panzerstorm though, you shouldn't struggle too much. The next stage of the top path is to spot 5 enemy vehicles with the Recon equipment. For this, just put the spotting scope on and prosper. Hamada is a good option, it's pretty easy, especially if you're attacking, as there are always lots of vehicles sitting up on the hills. Planes count too, so don't forget to spot them as well. After that, just repair vehicles for 100 health while playing as a support, and that shouldn't be too difficult. Follow around a friendly tank and you should be good to go. And then your options branch off again. You can either call in a squad reinforcement vehicle, or you can damage a tank with an anti-tank mine. Those are your two options. To be fair though, you can be working on these at the same time and just see what happens. To call in a vehicle, you need just under 10,000 points for the wagon, and so while you're playing, make sure that you're laying down those AT mines in case you get lucky. Thankfully, you don't have to kill a tank like that horrible assignment in BF1. All you need to do is damage one. And this one perhaps could end up being a bit annoying at times if you don't get lucky, but in time it will happen. Just put them in the common routes for the vehicles. The last and final stage is to kill a tank. Now the only annoying thing about this is when you do tons of damage to a tank and then someone swoops in and gets the final blow. That's particularly annoying. But once you've destroyed that tank though, the Selbstslider 1906 will be yours. Now there is one last item on the assignment though, but it's purely optional, and that is to roadkill an enemy. If you do so, you'll gain an extra 7,400 chapter XP, which may or may not be useful to you if you haven't already got to max rank on Tides of War. Of course, depending on what route you took in the assignment, you can still go back and do the other paths if you need some chapter XP, or you just want to complete them because you're an absolute madman and a bit of a completionist. So you've got the gun now, that's all well and good, but what is it like? Well, first off, this is a Recon weapon. It's a self-loading rifle, so it's comparable with the RSC, Model 8 and the ZH-29. In fact, it's very similar to the ZH in a lot of ways. More on that in a second. If you've played BF1, you may be familiar with the Selbstslider 1906 because it featured as a medic weapon there, and then later on there was a sniper variant introduced. Of course, this weapon is a Recon gun, so it's far more comparable with the sniper variant than the medic version from BF1. Either way, it is a very different gun and very fun to use. It's got a 164 rounds per minute firing rate with a 5 round capacity. As you can imagine, 5 rounds is not a lot, but much like with the other SLRs, 5 rounds is plenty if the gun kills you in 2 shots, and guess what? The Selbstslider does. There is something extremely satisfying about landing 2 shots on a moving target and seeing them just drop. Even more satisfying if you get a headshot too. You've got a few options when it comes to sights on this gun, much like with the other SLRs. Either opt for a 3 times or a 6 times for the best success. Sometimes the 6 can be really good for long range maps like Armada, but the 3 works really well if you'd rather play a close range map such as Devastation. Now, I mentioned the fact that it's very similar to the ZH-29, and well, it absolutely is. It's got the same rate of fire, assuming that you've got the rate of fire increase on the ZH. The default rate of fire on the ZH is actually 150, which would make it slightly slower than the Selbstslider. The RSC and the Model 8 both fire faster though. It really means that you need to place your shots much better, especially if you spot multiple opponents. If you miss just one shot, you could either run out of bullets or the enemy might just get the drop on you. I feel that with guns like this, it comes down to practice and a bit of rhythm, just learning how fast to fire and learning the lead when you're trying to hit moving targets. I'd say this gun is perhaps a little bit more accurate than the ZH-29, but not by much. Okay, so let's talk specializations and skill tree now. What's the best to go for? Well, the first 2 options are either improved ADS speed or maximum accuracy by equipping the bipod. Personally, I'm not a bipod kind of guy when it comes to snipers, so this was an easy choice for me. ADS speed all the way. The left hand options are then improved reload speed, faster weapon switching and less vertical recoil. Less vertical recoil would be nice, but the other 2, I'm not really that bothered by. The right hand side offered up improved accuracy in aimed fire, which you're pretty much always going to be using. 60% faster movement while in aimed fire, which again you're pretty much always going to need, and then 10% faster bullets to make it easier to hit targets at range. This was a pretty easy choice for me then, right hand side all the way. Simple. This weapon is all about aimed fire, and you want to play into that. You really aren't going to be hip firing it very much unless you're in a serious jam, and having that extra movement when you're aimed really does make a big difference. To be fair, you could opt to go for the improved vertical recoil as the last choice though, if you wanted to, and perhaps have a bit of a mix. Overall, I think this Selbstslider is a cool weapon, but it's not very different from the SLRs that we already have in the game. In fact, it's remarkably similar to the ZH-29 in the way that you fire it, play with it, and just generally feel about it. That's fine, of course, if you like that weapon, and I do, but at the same time, it's nice to have something unique. The next assignment is for the semi-auto AG42 rifle, and that will start on December 27th, so get those presents unwrapped, fill up on turkey and Christmas pudding, and get ready for the next challenge. And that's all for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know your thoughts on the gun down in the comments below. I really like it, and I think it's an excellent choice if you want to play as an aggressive recon in this game. It just looks cool too, something very punchy and satisfying about the animations. The sound as well is absolutely phenomenal on this thing. We already know that the sound design of Battlefield games is top notch, and there are a few awesome sounding weapons, but this one, the Selbstslider 1906, nearly takes the cake for me. It has a very nice ring to it. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you didn't, a dislike. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you in the next one.